The twists and turns keep coming this week as Laurel struggles to make it out of the hospital, Frank does away with Dominic's body, and Annalise and Bonnie have a heart-to-heart that blows the Becel test out of the water. Laurel is still trapped in the psych ward, having nightmares about her premature labor, her meetings with her father, Wes, and more. Antares is moving forward with their plan to go public, and all of our main characters watch Jorge Castillo's announcement at the New York Stock Exchange. Laurel wants to use this as a negligence argument, but Annalise says human services say he's been visiting the baby every chance he can get. Annalise assures Laurel she's doing everything she can, but outside of her hospital room she admits to Frank that she's not sure if Laurel should be let out because she's worried she did something to induce premature labor and might be a danger to herself. Michaela, who has been eagerly awaiting a text or contact from Tegan after congratulating her on the Antares deal, arrives to keep Laurel company. Frank is still being plagued by Dominic's cell phone ringing off the hook, and Annalise worries that if he doesn't destroy the phone he'll be the next one to end up dead. The number isn't saved, but Frank assumes it's Jorge calling over and over. He ditches Dominic's body in the trunk of a car at a junkyard and watches as it's smashed, but he can't bring himself to add the phone to the demolition pile because of Wes' voicemail. Annalise goes to Nate for help again, insisting that the police are lying about the missing hard drive never being admitted to evidence, but he brushes her off. Meanwhile, Connor distracts himself by driving headfirst into the class action lawsuit to find more wrongly convicted felons for their case. Oliver isn't interested though, he's just worried about Simon, which puts Annalise on edge. In fact, he's so worried he's hacked into the hospital to monitor Simon's vital signs. Connor urges Annalise to be nicer to Oliver, but she reminds him that Oliver doesn't need to be babied. Annalise is also haunted by flashbacks, first of Laurel in her elevator, and then, when she goes to Wes' apartment, by memories of him and their time together. She searches his apartment for any clues linking him to Dominic and finds baby clothes stuffed away in a drawer. It's unclear, but I think they belong to Laurel and are intended for her baby, making Annalise feel haunted by all she has wrought yet again. Back at the hospital, Laurel remembers an obscure filing her mother's lawyer made to get her released from the psych ward and wants to use Michaela's phone to research it. She's desperate to fix the mess she made and feels helpless stuck inside the hospital. Laurel texted Annalise with the idea to use the Protection from Abuse Act, but Annalise says she already filed that exact petition and it was denied. Michaela wants to know why Annalise is still lying to Laurel, and she admits she's worried about Laurel's mental state and trying to protect her from herself. Frank goes to visit Bonnie and asks her to turn against Denver, not for him, but for Laurel and the baby. He wants them all to be a family again, but Bonnie cruelly tells him she wishes she'd let him pull the trigger the night he threatened to shoot himself at Annalise's house. Bonnie really knows how to hit ya where it hurts her. While Connor still works away at the class action, Nate shows up at Michaela and Asher's apartment with bad news. One of the Kaplan Gold attorneys told the police they saw an altercation between Asher and Simon earlier in the evening, which looks bad for Asher's innocence. Nate also tears into Connor, surprised that Annalise has left the class action in his hands. Oliver uses the distraction to leave and attempt to visit Simon at the hospital. He lies to the nurse, telling him that he is Simon's boyfriend and Simon tried to himself because he's still in the closet. It works, and he sits by a comatose Simon's bedside apologizing and talking to him. Frank wants to tell Laurel about Wes' voicemail, but Annalise is just mad he still has the phone. He installed an app to track where phone calls are coming from with the idea of seeing when it's Jorge, but it rings and it's a new number, one from Philly. Frank says it's coming from the DOS office in Denver, which prompts him to send Annalise to Bonnie to apologize. He thinks it's their only hope. Annalise does go, and inexplicably, Bonnie lets her in. What follows is a masterclass in acting from Liza Weil and Viola Davis. Take note, showrunners, this is what we mean we say we want good, meaty material for two actresses to take a bite out of. The two face off against each other, drudging up old wounds and sharing hard truths with nuance, vulnerability, and aplomb. Bonnie knows Annalise is there to ask for help with Denver and the hard drive, but then Annalise does apologize for firing her. Bonnie wants to know why her telling Annalise she loves her upset her so much. Why can't she admit their relationship is far more complicated than wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. Annalise admits that sometimes Bonnie's need for her is too much. Bonnie counters she feels the same, and Annalise says their entire relationship is predicated on needing each other. But Bonnie won't leave it there. She pushes Annalise to admit that their relationship is about assuaging her guilt for what she did in the case, defending one of Bonnie's abusers. Bonnie says she wishes Annalise had just apologized or written her a check rather than drawing her into her life, because she thinks she would have been happier staying a waitress. Finally, Annalise breaks down and admits she helps people, Bonnie, Laurel, Wes, everyone, because it makes her feel less empty and terrible, but that maybe Bonnie should have just led her herself and saved them all the trouble. It's a mammoth conversation that covers a ton of ground for both women and really lays them, their motivations, and their palpable wounds bare. It's these moments that still make the show must-see TV. Recap continues on page 2.